Dae-Young Lee is from Korea. He graduated from medical school in 1994. He is married to Jung, a registered nurse, and has two sons. He specialized in general surgery, did the training in Presbyterian Medical Center in Korea in 1999, earned a PhD in medicine in 2002, and then from 2005 to 19, 14 years he spent in Middle East in various roles. He'll speak to us from that experience. He studied in CIU and got a MDiv in Global Studies and a PhD in Intercultural Studies. He's also an ordained pastor, ordained by the International Presbyterian Church of London. Currently, he is working as General Surgeon and Director of the International Health Center and Director of Palliative Care Center at Presbyterian Medical Center, Jeonju, Korea. He also has authored a book by the name Shalom, God's Ultimate Purpose of the World. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matthew. It is a great privilege for me to present this issue through ICMDA webinar. So as doing a medical mission to the Arab world for many years, I would like to share my thought and experience and hope my presentation to demonstrate what God has been doing for the Arab world through medical missions. As I was introduced, I am a general surgeon and have been doing medical missions in the Arab world for many years, and currently working at the Presbyterian Medical Center in Korea. I am married to a beautiful and faithful woman. Her name is Hyunjung, and she is an emergency nurse. So we have two lovely sons. The first one studies mechanical engineering in the States and is currently serving Army as military service is compulsory for all Korean young men. The second son studies medicine at Budapest in Hungary. So let's move on to the theme. Okay, in the midst of brokenness and pain for a long time, there is a desperate need for people in the Arab world to experience shalom, which is God's original purpose for his creation. And he desires human beings to enjoy the fruits of his creation. Shalom in Hebrew can simply be translated as peace. And it has much broader and deeper biblical concept than only a meaning of the absence of hostility, strife, and disorder. It is the fallen nature of all creation that without God's divine intervention, no one will experience shalom. And as we all believe, Jesus has fulfilled his task to open the door to shalom. Jesus' encounters with marginalized people are marked by a deep heart response, and his compassion should be reached out to those who are in despair from deadly violence in the Arab world. Righteousness through justification by the person of Jesus Christ has brought mankind the way to experience shalom through the restored relationship with God. The gospel of peace shows the only way that can transform people and their societies. Therefore, those engaged in Christian medical mission should provide the message of shalom for individual and social transformation. Biblical shalom would also transform the social structures that perpetuate spiritual blindness and oppression, especially in the local communities, through the compassionate Christian medical mission in the region. Christian medical mission work has to find the right way for God's mission and to search for the unique role to play in Christian mission endeavor. Many of these endeavors have traced and retraced the same steps for decades. We need to learn from what has and hasn't worked in the past so we can go further and do better for the future. We also should learn from each other and build connections so that we may increase the quality and the quantity of ministries, make an impact for God's kingdom. We got to pursue a whole new way of doing things, solving major problems, and turning our working into something we both love and are proud of. God's proposed solution is a new way of doing ministry. It is time to shift our values, to switch from a profit focus to caring for people, communities, and the whole world. We seek Christian medical professionals with a passion to make Christ known through medicine, because the revelation of God as a creator profoundly shapes our understanding of the whole world. Christian medical professional can possibly be engaged in holistic ministry, impacting lives and communities across different dimensions and at multiple levels with medicine. We seek to serve in locations and roles where we can make a real difference to those in need. Through professional medical practice, we are able to enjoy proximity, credibility, and the opportunity to demonstrate and share the gospel of Christ as we build relationships with people. We hold together different dimensions, such as word and action, personal life, professional medical skills, and our contribution to building God's community. The world is changing rapidly, and the growing global church is pursuing mission, while at the same time, global ideologies antagonistic to mission are spreading throughout the world. Massive movement of people and rapid urbanization are resulting in significant cultural and social changes, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots is growing. At the same time, it is greatly encouraging to see the gospel growing in places where it has never been before, even in the Arab world. And in the shadow of national and regional conflicts. Around the world, followers of Christ are also being persecuted for their faith, especially in the Islamic context. It is undeniable that remarkable Christian medical professionals have provided outstanding care in medically underdeveloped countries for centuries as a fundamental instrument of God's mission. However, it is a common occurrence now that many famous Christian mission clinics and hospitals all over the world struggle to continue providing their services. The major challenge that they are facing is the lack of both financial resources and human resources, as they are mostly dependent on foreign supporters. As we know, healing is a central concern of medicine, and the goal of healing is recovery or restoration. Healing is a dynamic process of recovering from a trauma or illness by proper medical practices. So medical practice is supposed to be holistic, which means that the whole person, certainly including spiritual aspect, should be concerned. We prayerfully hope that medical missions that we do make Jesus Christ known in this broken and needy world to bring about reconciliation and new life. Many people don't know God's churches in the Arab world exist for a long time. And I was so encouraged by their presence and their dedication to the ministries to share the gospel with the Muslims in spite of many challenges and persecution. I strongly encourage medical missions to search for the ways of working with local churches as it seeks to fulfill the Great Commission together, establishing and nurturing new local churches. We long for transformation of lives and communities, including oppressive, unproductive, or unjust structures, by the power of the gospel through the holistic medical mission. As we all may know and agree, Christian medical mission has to intentionally bear witness to the whole character of God and his mighty acts of redemption through proclamation, service, and fellowship. We seek to lead integrated lives reflecting God in all we practice medicine and emphasize ministry amongst the most physically and spiritually marginalized. As seeing what has been happening in the Arab world, we got to prioritize the most spiritually, materially, and socially impoverished. In places where the good news of Jesus is least known, spiritual and physical needs are the greatest, and the church is small or oppressed. So we seek to bring tangible hope to people's lives in practical ways. I want to point out that Christian medical mission efforts have been subverted, ignored, or dismissed the local medical professionals, guidelines, and local government regulations, which may be ways incompatible with the biblical values based on the gospel. Paternalistic tendencies, especially among expatriate mission workers, have at times resulted in the sending of so-called medical teams that lacked even basic mission training. I would like to suggest that we should carefully and deeply think about who has to hold the key of medical mission. When my wife and I did our medical missions in the Arab world, we tried to move the local community from dependency to dignity by challenging people to utilize their full potential through discovering their own capacity and resources on hand. Let me briefly introduce what we have done for medical mission in the Arab world. The hospital where we were working is one of the government hospitals in the Arab world. Because of poor support from the government and the lack of management, the hospital was extremely underdeveloped. This poor developing country often need immediate and emergency humanitarian help. But to establish a long-term solution, they need to have a self-sustaining and vibrant healthcare system. My wife and I started a medical and nursing training project at this hospital, and the purpose of the project was to strengthen the local medical professionals and the healthcare system. So the health and spiritual needs of the local people would be better served by their own medical professionals. Inadequate surgical and nursing training directly contributes to some of the highest morbidity and mortality rates among critically ill patients. So we helped the local surgeons and nurses be better trained. Community development initiatives focused on healthcare and training are the most strategic and urgently needed ministry platforms in a severely under-resourced country. My wife developed the fundamental nursing training program, the critical care nursing training program, and basic life support program for local nurses. The most important aim of our projects is to build up self-sustaining local leadership. They may continually train the new health workers by themselves. It may take a longer time for the local medical professionals to understand new ways of medical practice and values. But once they come to accept them as their own practices, it will certainly be sustainable and be developed better and faster by themselves. We were so much encouraged by the local teaching staff who were actively involved in our training program to make the program sustainable and developed without undesirable dependency. I had an amazing story which may encourage you much. After 2 years, we started the BLS training program, Basic Life Support Training Program. A severely ill patient came into our ward at the hospital. He was an uncle of the hospital director and had a heart attack soon after admission. So our code blue team, firstly formed in the hospital history, successfully helped the patient recover from his heart attack after 30-minute cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Many people at the hospital, including the hospital director and the leadership, were amazed at what had just happened before their eyes. Many of the hospital staff were so encouraged from this experience and determined to join the training programs to learn more about them. After our leaving the country because of the civil war, the local training staff kept running these programs for a while, even in the very difficult circumstances because of the civil war. The nursing training programs earned a reputation among medical society in the region and the local government. This project strives to establish a model of compassionate, countercultural Christian presence and witness, and a high standard of ethics and medical professionalism. In addition to improved medical skills, those facilitating this project are confronting the culture of corruption, incompetence, inefficiency, and apathy that is endemic in the local public health care system. Through this medical ministry platform, Christian doctors and nurses were able to minister holistically to the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of the local people. This project also had an impact on local people with the message of the gospel in word and deed. Our medical team was actively involved in spiritual ministry, praying before and after surgeries, as well as visiting patients in their homes very frequently. It is important to find a way to encourage the growth of something that is indigenous and will be able to bear long-term spiritual fruits. Rather than providing primary medical practice for patients, it should establish a healthy cooperation network which will eventually empower local medical professionals. In addition to this medical mission, we got a vision of the Arabs to Arabs, which we empower and assist our brothers and sisters in the Arab world to reach out their own people. They know the language and culture much better than any expatriates, which makes medical missions in the Islamic context more effective and efficient. There is a tendency in Christian medical missions to build their own institutions to provide compassionate care for the lost who would come to faith through their mission work, while neglecting the importance place of the local medical professionals and churches. The Arabs to Arabs movement gives a vision of what Christian mission can do now to serve better the felt needs in the Arab world. This movement recognizes the potential of the Arab Christian medical professionals and Arab churches, and nurtures the development of ministry that is long-term and sustainable by local Christian community. One of the closest Egyptian friends is a transplant surgeon in the States. He was willing to come and visit us and help us. He provided a seminar about surgery in Arabic, which built a very close relationship and network with the local surgeons who were able to continually learn and practice with his assistant and help. I also want to introduce our second part of medical missions, as we had to leave the first country because of the civil war. Imagine being forced to flee your country in order to escape to safety. If you are lucky, you had some time to pack your bag. If not, you simply dropped everything and ran away. Refugees are people fleeing conflict or persecution. Life as a refugee can be difficult to imagine. But for nearly 20 million people around the world, it is a terrifying reality. Over a million Syrian refugees have arrived in Lebanon, fleeing the conflict in their country. Syrians now make up a quarter of the population of this tiny Mediterranean country. Many were forced to live with only what they could carry and are living in desperate poverty. Finding work is difficult, and many families are forced to send their children out to work to make ends meet. Lebanon has the highest per capita concentration of refugees worldwide. Unlike Jordan, Iraq, or Turkey, there are no refugee camps in Lebanon. Various factions in Lebanese government have refused to set up camps, worried about the signals it could send to Syrian government. Instead, about half of the refugees live in rented housing, while the other half are in nomadic camps or hosted by families or local communities. As soon as we arrived in Lebanon, we started a relief work supported by the Korean government for those who had arrived as refugees and been living with very poor resources. While we are doing our ministry for refugees, we were getting more disappointed because what we could do for them was so limited. When we came back from the tent camps, we were too emotional to sleep at night. The children who didn't even wear shoes in the very cold weather broke our heart. However, we have seen positive responses to the gospel among people who we contacted and served. Our Lord would bring spiritual revival among Syrian people, as well as the churches in Lebanon, which were called to share his love with people in need. The medical project for refugees from Syria and Iraq consists of four main activities. LP's Home Clinic is a medical mission stationary clinic for refugees, which tries to provide excellent primary medical care for patients. In addition to this stationary clinic, serving the highly populated area of refugees in Bekaa and the eastern part of Lebanon, mobile clinic activity takes the healing message of Christ, as well as primary medical care to the neediest of the population in isolated areas. This mobile clinic travels to extremely poor areas packed with Syrian refugees, which lack medical institutions offering quality healthcare for refugees. Most of the poverty-prone refugees are deprived of education and therefore have little knowledge about how to maintain good health and its benefits in life. To live as a refugee, a disease-free and healthy lifestyle is essential, as we know. Therefore, to address the needs, we feel the urge to educate the underprivileged about health rights and services through health education experts. The primary objective of this health awareness program is to keep people disease-free through prevention and education about adopting a healthy lifestyle and preventing unwelcome diseases. Another important program of this ministry is to visit patients' homes, which provides several advantages. Patients who do not come to the clinic because of various reasons are taught how to take care of themselves at home and are encouraged to come to the clinic for their advanced health care. A visiting nurse and her staff take care of family members by providing a teaching session of preventive medicine in their own setting where they are more at ease. Furthermore, gaining a greater understanding of the family's current living circumstances helps those families build up intimate relationship with the caregivers. Considerable physical and emotional support has been being found in the visiting staff patient alliance, as the bond of trust between patient and physician is vital to the medical care process. So this medical ministry offers opportunities to significantly improve the quality of life and health status of refugee families. From the beginning, the project has been offering a counseling program with a local Christian psychologist to support the families that are struggling from serious emotional and spiritual issues. Certainly, many of refugees have experienced profound loss and survived devastating events that can seriously impact their emotional development and long-term functionality. Their journeys from their home countries to Lebanon are often rife with violence and instability and are characterized by long periods without the most basic needs met, such as proper nutrition, housing, and education. The intense psychological and spiritual pressure deep within their hearts must not neglected. The counseling program for these families is only beginning to understand the full impact of armed conflict, displacement, and resettlement on children's development and overall well-being. The counseling program tries to help refugee families, including children, learn to cope with their emotional and spiritual issues. This is the photo showing the Christmas event, inviting all our counseling program members or families. This is a school for refugee children, which was run by a Lebanese church in the refugee camp. And we regularly visited this school and offered mobile clinics. The whole refugee community nearby this school came for medical help. And local Lebanese doctors, nurses, and volunteers actively participated, which was a great blessing for all people involved in the ministry. I certainly believe that this cooperation strengthens the church ministry. It is critical for Christian medical mission to find ways of growing indigenous churches in understanding of its task and ability to perform it together. One of the most important roles of medical mission in Lebanon is to support local churches that are actively involved in the ministry for refugees and the marginalized. Collaboration with local churches should be put as a top priority of the medical mission, as medical professionals help local churches to build up trust and intimate relationships with people. The medical mission cultivates the kingdom culture of love, compassion, integrity, and righteousness. Furthermore, this will continue to encourage Arab Christian medical professionals to cast a vision of God's mission in the region and provide a place of collaboration with the global church in reaching out to the unreached people groups in the Arab world. There was a short encouraging paragraph which really encouraged me one day. Is like this: when nothing seems to happen, remember that prayer is like planting a seed in the ground. For weeks and months, we may see nothing, but a lot is happening underground. Keep on trusting on God, because one day we will see the answer to our prayers, just as one day we will see the plant begin to grow. So let's pray and work with God to change our world. When we plan, we just work. But when we pray, God works. This book is released recently, and I hope you may read this, as it has a lot of important information. The left side is Korean translation, and the right side is an English translation. Thank you very much for your attention. May the Lord bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for joining us and sharing from your experience and your years of work in Middle East. That's a very inspiring and challenging talk. And now we'll go on to a time of question and answer. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for that talk. There are a lot of questions coming up. Primarily, there seems to be a lot of interest in following your path. So I'm going to start with a personal question. How did you take a decision to move into such a difficult and challenging region and kind of work? You and your wife 15 years back.
Personally, so I chose the most needed place for surgeons and nurses to come. So it didn't actually matter how poor the country was, but I was invited by my friend. He was also a surgeon, and he asked to come and help him and his ministry together. So it's like a personal relationship with him. And also I actually offered like 4 different countries to come, but I chose actually the most needed place to go. So I think my decision was right. I really enjoyed being there and building up the relationship with the local doctors, and the local doctors really helped us a lot to adjust in their culture and language. At the same time, we had the opportunities to offer training programs for them to grow. So we had a great time together there.
Thank you. That's a very interesting observation. Decision you took to look at where the needs are in terms of surgical needs and move in there. And for those who are looking at future engagement, remember that where the need is, more go. And there are questions on the current needs. One of the questions coming up is on specific on Saudi Arabia. What are the opportunities for Christian doctors and healthcare professionals to serve the Lord in Saudi Arabia? how can they find appropriate opportunities, and what they should be wary of?
I don't quite know the context in Saudi Arabia, but I also recognize that they also need training programs for local doctors. So if you are very well trained in maybe subspecial part of surgery or internal medicine, so you will be invited as a trainer. And I actually came across many opportunities for Egyptian doctors in Egypt. They invited us to come and train their doctors. So there are many opportunities. I think it's quite the same to Saudi Arabia as well. If you are very well qualified in certain areas, actually, and you apply for certain hospitals, maybe government hospital or private hospitals, I think that opens doors for you to go there and train local doctors and maybe develop the local healthcare system. And you develop the building up the relationship with people. And I believe there are many opportunities to share your love and God's love and truth with them. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So as a training person, training as an opportunity to move into Saudi Arabia and other countries.
Yeah.
There's a question on what are the other countries in Middle East where healthcare workers are needed for support, fellowship, and prayer. Any thoughts on it?
I met many countries like Syria and also Yemen and Iraq. There are many churches and Christian medical workers there, and they have very poor resources. Many of them have tried to meet their needs with what they have. I think they are very lack of resources there. And I met one of Syrian doctors there, and in a very difficult situation with under resources clinic, he actually tried to help their own people there. So I think we have to pray for them, and
Yeah.
if doors are open, so we may go there. And I was invited to go there, but because of so much restrictions by the Korean government, we were not able to join him and help him. But I think if the doors open, many Christian actually churches and doctors, nurses may go there and help the ministry there. I think, yeah, that's possible. And right now, I think we need a lot of prayer because we have a lot of restrictions because of COVID-19 right now.
Yeah. Thank you. There's a question on the sharing the gospel. Were you able to share the word openly with the population you were involved with? No, only you were had a practical demonstration of the love of Christ.
It's depending on the context. The first country where we served is really we have to be really careful when you try to share the gospel with them. Most Muslims have different ideas about Christianity. So maybe if you build up the relationship and there are many opportunities to share your faith with them, it shouldn't, I think it shouldn't be very offensive against their belief, but I believe with a intimate relationship with local people, there are many opportunities to share. But maybe in Lebanon context, Lebanese churches are very active, and you also help Lebanese churches to share their faith together, right? So in Lebanon, you are able to share more actively in word and action, right, with the assistance of local churches. So it's really depending on the context. Yeah.
So you need to be aware of which context where you can share, where you cannot share.
That's right. Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I think one of the inspiring parts of your presentation was the partnership with the local church and actively engaging with the local community and empowering them. And I was thinking about instead of doing things yourself, you're getting things done by holding hands, walking alongside. I think it is from probably a missionary in one of the countries who are writing this question, asking this question. In a context where Christian medical missionaries are resistant to supporting local church and medical ministry, what would your advice be for the few marginalized missionaries who do want to support local churches instead of prioritizing medical missionary hospitals? Uh, any advice to such people who are struggling?
In recent decades, it's really hard to maintain mission hospitals. If it's really big, you can actually get resources to run the hospital. So in my book, I actually explained the project should be smaller so that we can actually maintain well and build up the relationship more intimately with people that you serve. And a lot of places, especially with the refugees, they are in a very poor condition. In that context, the preventive medicine is more important than the real treatment-based hospital or clinics. So in the depending on the because when I served in Yemen and I mean in the first country and the Lebanon, it's a really different context. And what we actually focused the first country is very different from the second country, right? So I point out that the fact that we actually develop the strategies according to the context you are working in. And for the biggest issue for medical mission is sustainability. So whenever you try to help local patients, you have to bring local medical professionals or healthcare workers together for training. So you are not actually able to be there for a long time, sometimes security issues, sometimes your personal issues. So as soon as you try to help the local community with your medical practices, you have to make a plan for sustainability. I think that's the most important the strategies for your ministry.
Thank you. I think a long-term perspective of seeing that the local systems are strengthened, health systems are strengthened, the sustainability, and so there is no way but to partner, hold hands, and network. Thank you for that. One of the questions Selma is asking is about junior doctors training and how many years of training you need before you can consider medical missions, and what are the roles of a junior doctor?
It's like a whole life journey, right? So you can actually finish all your training and go serve there. You can actually complete medical training. So I did like that because when I served, I felt a lack of certain skills or medical knowledge or experience. So I went back to Korea. I got the training. Like for instance, I did a colonoscopy, right? So, but my skill wasn't really good enough to train local doctors. So whenever I had a opportunity, I went back to Korea for training, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I actually went back to the mission country, and actually I trained. So I recommend junior doctors to have enough training to teach local doctors. But when I went to Lebanon for the project for refugees, I didn't need a lot of medical training, right? Because it's primary healthcare for refugees, mobile clinics, very basic healthcare and education. So I don't need kind of colonoscopy training, very special training for that case. But as I told you from the beginning, it's always according to the context. So you go there, maybe in one of the hospitals in Saudi Arabia. If you feel lack of some certain skills, you go back to your own country for the training. And like these days, it's easier for us to travel around. So
thank you for that. It's a lifelong journey of learning anyway. For doctors and healthcare professionals and any professional for that matter. So so you practice and learn and continue on that. And there is an opportunity. Sharon from CMDA has offered that CMDA US does training for short-term missions. So those who want to kind of reach out can reach out to Sharon or CMDA US. Now, there's a question from Sharon again on the whole issue of employment, your employment with the state government. Was it formal? Was it informal? Was there a MOU? How did you land up working in a government hospital?
I applied, and we made through a non-government organization. So I offered training programs, and we brought some medical equipment for training. So they accepted. We had like an agreement between the hospital and my organization. So the hospital actually in the beginning provided a visa for us and work permit as a foreigner to practice medicine. So hospital provided those like platforms for us to practice medicine. So we had like a MOU, like a agreement between hospital and our organization.
Okay. So you had a training program to offer, and so they were happy to have you as join.
That's right.
There was a question from Louis asking about regulations in hospitals that prevent us from preaching about Jesus. And how do you talk to people who are in need of spiritual guidance in such context?
We in the beginning we actually, especially in the Islamic countries, is context, we actually don't openly proclaim and share the gospel, or that can be very offensive to their faith and the culture, right? So we have to be very humble, and we have to follow the context. So that God actually offers a lot of opportunities to share your faith. So you have to design from the beginning. If you don't have any close relationship, whenever you share your faith or the Bible or something like that, that could be very offensive. But if you build up the relationship with people, they listen to you. So sometimes you have to be careful and you have to be patient until they really listen to what you are trying to say about your faith, right? So we are not there to persuade or convert Muslims to Christians, but no, we try to be patient that God opens doors for us to share our faith. That's God's work, I believe.
Thank you. I think that in your sharing also it came out very strongly. It's a relationship-based journey. It's a lifestyle of relationship which gives us opportunities to share God's word to them. There's a question about your children. What was the impact of your children on your children? Did they have contact with the local community, and how did it affect them?
When we were there, they were very young, and they have a very close relationship with the local people, and they usually the culture are family-based. So when they invited us, we all bring our children together to their family homes, and children actually play together. And children are really good to build up the relationship. So they are very good languages, and so they usually open the doors for whole families gather together and share love together. So children are amazing. We are always worried about children, but no, they are amazing.
Thank you. I think we are also experienced that in our own journey, that children are a good conversation starter, and
Yep.
icebreaker, and the family context opens up various opportunities, and children are, their lives are changed.
Yep.
I suppose Angel is asking from a South Korean perspective. I think Angel is from South Korea. How are South Koreans perceived by
Um,
Muslims and in the Arab world? Is that
yeah, the churches in Korea are passionate to reach out, but they are scared sometimes because information that most Korean churches and Korean people receive are very how can I say distorted, right? Distorted. It's not the true, because when we have news from mass media, usually Muslims are like a terrorist. That's the only concept about Muslims that we receive through mass media, right? So their concept about Muslims are very distorted, I think. So when we share our passion of sharing our faith with Muslims, they are amazed and they respect our passion, but they are scared to contact Muslims. That's what I can say. Yeah. So when we have like refugees from Yemen, Syria, even Egypt. Recently, the government received people from Afghanistan, and people actually welcomed them, but at the same time they are worried about their faith spreading all over the country in Korea. So yeah.
yeah. There are a lot of questions coming. I think we are almost running out of time. We'll take a few questions more. Did you have to learn the local language before you landed up there, or was there a time of preparation?
Yeah, at the first country, I learned Arabic for 1.5 years. So like full-time students.
Okay.
That helped me actually understand the local culture and language, so we could communicate with the local doctors and nurses. Local doctors usually try to communicate in English, but nurses actually didn't have opportunity to speak English. So my wife's Arabic is much better than mine. So yeah, but yeah, we had a chance to learn local language. That really helped us to build up the relationship with the local doctors.
Yeah. Dr. Cho asked, did you go by yourself or with a team of anesthetists, operating team, ward nurses, plus minus instruments? Did you go
No,
as a surgeon alone or full team?
I didn't catch this.
Did you go as a surgeon alone, or did you go with an anesthetist, OTT team plus instruments? How did you?
Okay. We actually worked together with local doctors. They're anesthetists. So sometimes we have short-term teams to come for training, surgeons and orthopedic surgeons. But we actually worked together with the local anesthetist and local, they were really limited instrument. So in that case, I asked my friend to send some instrument, surgical instrument or equipment to work together at the hospital. Yep.
So you worked with the local team and the
Yep.
specific
Yep.
things.
Yep.
Children's education, was it on at the local schools or online, or how was it?
The first 2 years, our children went to the local school, but we found very serious issues about Islamic teaching at the local schools. So we have like expatriates in our towns together. So not only us, many expatriate families have had issues. So after 2 years, we started a parents co-op. So parents and some volunteers gathered together to teach our children together. Yes, we say parents co-op. Yeah.
Interesting. Parents cooperative. Okay,
Yeah.
teach. Yeah. Rachel from Lebanon is asking a question. Dr. Lee, what is your message to Arab believer healthcare workers?
what is my message?
To Arab Christian healthcare workers. Rachel is a Christian doctor from Lebanon.
Yeah, this I felt really amazing desire for Arab Christian doctors to help the neediest people there. We actually had a ICMDA in Egypt several times. So some of people went to other Arab countries for sharing their faith and at the same time medical skills together. And we learned Arabic, but our Arabic was really limited. But those medical professionals in Arab countries are really doing amazing ministries. Yeah, so with a cultural insight and language ability. So if we work together, we actually complete each other for God's mission to the Arab world. Yeah.
The local Christian doctors can do a great work of coming together with others and complementing each other. Was there any concern of safety? Was there any kidnaps or anything that happening in the last 10 years there?
Of course, yeah, that's the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues for expatriate workers, especially the first country. Every year we had a kidnap, and even one of my closest friend actually was shot to death just after we left the country. And there are many security issues, safety issues there because of civil war going on. But our life is on God's hands. We have a lot of people dying on the street in Korea, so it's like difficult to be safe without God's hands, right? So it's all our life, and ministry is on God's hands. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a personal question. Why did you become a priest? Why did you get ordained? What was the motive? That is from Dr. Sangwan Khan.
Yeah, between two ministries, I had a chance to study theology because I'm a medical doctor. I didn't study hard Bible, but I wanted to evaluate my ministry. Is it my only way, or is it approved by biblical concept or something like that? So I was wondering after the first period of my ministry, what I am doing is right on God's side. So that's my question. So I studied theology and mission. That opens doors for me to study more about theology. And the first 20 years, I did ministry in the field, but I felt like I may share this kind of ministry with a more younger generation when I get older. So to be part of the organizing the leadership team to bring more younger generation to work together. So that's actually the first motivation to study theology. And on the path of that, I was recommended by my friends, pastor friends, actually recommended me to be ordained to more actively and effectively ministry for younger generation. So
thank you.
Yep.
Role modeling a lifelong journey of learning
Yep.
about what you said. Thank you. I think we have run out of time, so we're going to wind up. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for challenging and inspiring us. And what I take away is that instead of getting things, doing things yourself, but getting things done through holding hands, partnering, working with the local church in the midst of challenging, even in very challenging context. Thank you for inspiring us through that talk. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Lee. May God continue to make you a blessing in all your endeavors. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much. May the Lord bless you.